Welcome back to the CONVO Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is still on the ones and twos. And we like to say hello to all you fans out there. Thank you so much. Yesterday, we missed a super chat, fam, from our boy Ungie. And what did Ungie say?
I'll let you do the honors because this is hilarious.
He said that Elizabeth Warren's is about as grassroots as she is Cherokee.
Elizabeth Warren's campaign is about as grassroots as she is Cherokee. Yeah, and I wanted to point out, I don't know if you guys saw, but Tina Berg tweeted this picture on Twitter that had Elizabeth Warren claiming Native American ancestry on her record. It says there Native American when you pick, the race, and then on top of that, the law school she was at or the university she was at. Considered her a woman of color, and they said we haven't had very many women of color here, and I was just like, what? What? Yeah, there it is, Johnny. I've had to put white on some of these applications because as a Latin American, it's an ethnicity, not a race. So technically, yes, by race, it is. I have to choose white. And the fact that Elizabeth Warren gets to put Elizabeth Warren, she's not a woman of color. Anyway, this is identity politics, and I really don't like it. But it's just you know what I hate? That the Democratic establishment uses identity politics when it suits them, and they completely ignore it when it doesn't. Like in the instance of Tulsi Gabbard, they ignore the fact that she's a woman of color. She might as well be like the whitest person on earth because they really don't. But when it's Elizabeth Warren, oh yeah, like. She's Native American, and she never did anything for this people. It's not like she was part of the culture either. Yeah. She appropriated the culture. She didn't go to Standing Rock. She didn't stand with them.
And that's one of the biggest things,
It just feels wrong to me.
If you really wanted to stand up for Native Americans, you should have been at Standing Rock. There was one candidate who was there. We do have some super chats here real quick because we got to dump into some stuff because, fam, she's got to go do some stuff. Since we've had these super chats, you have been so generous over on the MCSC network and on the CONVO Couch YouTube now. Monetized, and thank you to our patrons. We love you guys for helping us out. The more you give us, the more we do, and we got a lot of plans on the boards for this year. Super Chat says dance monkey dance, talking about our intro with the monkey and all that other stuff. It's great, but this other super chat I want to talk about because it leads right into the next topic. Mares, we love you. I loved you when you were over on Get Your News on for Ron. I believe we were on a Twitter thread together, a personal one for Ron Team Plaque 1. He's there. He says, hell yes, national right to housing, fam. And today something happened on Hump Day. Why don't you tell us what?
Yes, so today Bernie Sanders unveiled the National Right to Housing Plan in a very FDR-like fashion. And I'm just going to go over the key points, but you can go in the Forbes article. You can also go to BernieSanders.com where he specifically talks about it. But his plan calls for a few things, and it literally is the most specific plan that I've ever seen as of late. Like, it's very FDR. Like, Elizabeth Warren has a plan, of course, and so does Kamala Harris, but none of these come close to what Bernie's doing. So the first thing it calls for is a National Housing Trust Fund, which basically is a small program where he has introduced before in 2009 during the crisis there. And now it's kind of expanding it, providing a shortage of, because of the shortage of affordable housing. So there's going to be 7.4 million units of permanent affordable housing built and required and acquired to expand to deal with the crisis that we have. And I know here in California, we are absolutely dealing with that. So there's also going to be 2 million additional new units of mixed income housing, which would be permanently off the private market. So that way they can always be affordable instead of like going up with the market, which is extremely important. Another thing that's going to happen is this is going to improve the economic security for people, and it's going to secure the local housing, wages under the Davis-Bacon Act. Another thing that he's doing is he's providing a $50 billion fund.
This is big.
To support the expansion of community land trusts, a model of democratic control of land ownership that creates limited equity home ownership opportunities, therefore giving people the ability to own homes. Now, he's also, and this is very important too, he's also going to provide permanent supportive housing. I'm wearing my She Does t-shirt today because I'm part of the She Does organization with Mel Karatni, who's a friend of ours, and it's hard to see, but She Does stands for She Does Deserve Shelter. She does deserve protection.
Big up to Mels.
And basically what we do is we go to city council meetings. We do protests. We advocate for not just housing for the homeless and shelters, but also housing in the sense of bridge housing, where it's providing mental health services, like health services in general, transitioning people back into being members of society. Because you can't just put people...
Thrust them back into society.
Because you can't just put them, give them a bed and expect them to be okay. There's a lot of things that go out when you're living in the streets. And I mean, anytime I go to Studio City, fam, or anytime in LA... Pasadena is kind of doesn't have that as bad yet, but you see what's happening. Tents everywhere. It's out of control. So this is very important.
Can I say something too about the She Does movement too as well? And it was kind of crazy when I heard the statistic that Mel told me that almost over 80% of the women that are homeless on the streets are have some form of domestic abuse or violence. And it's really just awful, because when you say she does have the right to proper medication, she does have the right to proper housing, it means a lot, because you're talking some of the most vulnerable people in society on the streets with no protection. And it really is, it's something, and this means a lot to me, because even today, me and Johnny were driving around and we saw this homeless person from Pasadena that I know, that when I first saw him, when he first got on the streets, and he was very, very strong, he's shriveling down to nothing. And this is really something serious. And I think Bernie Sanders has got a great plan here. And I'm glad he came up with this. Go ahead, fam. I'm sorry for getting a little emotional.
Oh, no. So this would help basically by providing the bridge housing. He's obviously going to put effort into that.
Yes.
Now, there's also going to be a 3% cap on rent increases, or a 1.5 times the rate of inflation, to avoid ridiculous overnight massive increases in rent. So our friend John Noddy, he knows very much how a lot of people are driven out of their homes because the landlord could literally increase our rent tomorrow. It could happen.
It's happened to us.
Bullying tactics. But they can do it by $500 if they wanted to. They can do it.
There's no limit.
When there's no rent control, and because Proposition 10 didn't pass, they could do it at any given time. And some people are driven out their houses by that.
Can I tell you what happened? And these are the bullying tactics that happen. We don't have rent control in our area. We're on a month-to-month lease. It's set up that way. So we call and we say, hey, we have a leak in the front of the house. We would like you to come out and fix it. She immediately raises our rent. So then she creates this culture of anything's broken, don't call to get it fixed,
right?
Because I'll raise your rent. Now, that done to us sucks. But imagine it being done to poor people who, might have a problem with their water issue or whatnot. They'll be afraid to call because they'll get their rent raised and they'll be out in the streets.
If they lost their job.
So this culture needs to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of this is very important, because a national a just cause eviction law is another thing that would help. And that's what Bernie Sanders is talking about. So this one would give tenants the right to renew their lease if they did not break the rules. And it would also give them legal protection against evictions and retaliatory rent increases, which is exactly what we're talking about. This is what we would like here, what we need, because there are predatory landlords that do this, that exploit people because they know they can't fight back. Over 1 million tenants in public housing would receive $70 billion in investment funds to promote rehabilitation and maintenance. So to the small tenants that aren't, that are simply struggling themselves to pay the high cost of land here, let's say in a place like California, it would also help them to fix these apartments so these people could live in better conditions. So it's all connected. It's not just one thing. It's not just rent control. It's all of these things that have to happen for all of this to be done.
And that's something that, here's what I'm saying. Bernie Sanders understands that there's a business out there, that we still do live in a capitalist system. So giving some incentive to the owners, like, hey man, I'll meet you halfway. I'll get you $10,000 for repairs that will cost you $20,000, but it would only cost you $10,000. Now you're going to increase the property value of your place. A little help from Uncle Sam, the people's taxes, and it's a win-win situation. So that's why I like a move like this. When there's money to help for improvements for everything, and maybe they'll concentrate on hey man, you could fix the foundation. We're going to spend a lot of money and time fixing the water to make sure that there's clean, accessible water for your tenants.
And in coalition with that, Pasta, the Green New Deal plays a part in this as well. So the buildings would be decarbonized and turned into resiliency centers with the highest standards of energy efficiency and also be accessible to public transportation. So they're not just going to build them anywhere. They're going to build them in places where people don't have to necessarily have a car. And in places like LA where, traffic is horrible, we need to improve the public transportation. Again, this is all little pieces coming together as part of a big plan.
Can I also say something about briefly? We have a fan of ours, a subscriber, someone who follows us, someone we talk back with. She got sick from black mold. There's situations in these buildings where they have black mold, where things are so ignored. You know what I'm saying? They're not checked upon, whatnot. When you talk about the decarbonization of these buildings and making sure that they're healthy living situations, it's important because it's being shunned, it's being pushed aside. So it's something that we have to pay attention to. Once again, Bernie Sanders, when it comes to this stuff, the burn man is the man. Sorry.
Yeah, these are all reminiscent of FDR policies,
wheelhouse.
But he's also going to do a couple things to prevent some of the fallouts that happened with FDR. So the Faircloth Amendment would also be repealed, which means this is going to allow public housing authorities to expand their housing stocks beyond levels from the 1990s, and public agencies would be able to receive housing trust funds to expand their housing stocks, ending the decade-long program of decline and disinvestment from publicly owned housing. So that is going to help also economically. He's looking at this also at the whole structure of the housing market too, not just like rent control. Like obviously there are more issues that kind of are talking to these real estate developers in a way, kind of like saying, hey, look, everybody benefits from all of this, not just the people that I'm trying to help, but obviously the people, they can't exploit them either. This is kind of like a stop at like exploitation too.
He also is really, when you talk about both sides and stuff like that, he's not just this whole kind of socialist mentality that he's just going to take care of poor people at the expense of everybody else. He's also trying to lift both sides up so both get on board and we get this done quickly, efficiently, and make some serious changes for the homeless, because 600,000 people on the streets right now is sick. It's disgusting in the most richest nation on the planet.
Right. And also like the way they're putting spikes everywhere to prevent them from doing anything. There's a couple pictures I wish I had now, but that where they're doing that everywhere. So there's also these new social housing units are going to have federal preemption of local exclusionary restrictions on land use. So this is exactly what I'm talking about here. This is going to avoid the Green New Deal's failure of segregated housing, because when FDR did this, a lot of African Americans, it created more of a segregated community, this is why we had like the ghettos. This is why we had like those places that were predominantly African American, Black communities versus the white communities. So this effort is going to stop that, and it's going to have these integrated homes in exclusionary neighborhoods, and then a new independent regulator on fair housing would break down the walls of segregation and discrimination in it. So basically what's happening now is that people the way these people build, they segregate people according to the rich. They're racially segregated. Most of the time, from the poor. So this is part of it. And I think it's very wise he's doing that, because obviously, Pasta, he gets criticized a lot for not having enough plans regarding reparations and regarding the Black community. And I think this actually shows that he's actually paying attention to that.
I want to make sure people get on over to the Rockfin, RAKFIN. That is one of the new platforms we're using. So is Graham Elwood. So is Nico House. So is Ron Placone. It's a blockchain type of platform. And listen, if you want to rage against the machine, it's all about getting behind some of these blockchains. I know there might be some degree of chance. There might be some degree of risk. But if you don't take risk, baby, you can't survive. Also on the MCSC network, we want to say hi to brilliant, wonderful Freethinker 59, Lilith Geisler, and Audio Funk Dialect. Thank you so much for watching. And are there any super chat contributions that we missed? Yeah. Which one?
There's two.
On ours or? On ours. Where are they at? Oh, I see Scared Avocado. Craig and he has a $10 one. Should we go for the $5 one first or the $10 one first? Here's the $10 one. I'm going to let Fiorella read this one, and I'll read the second one. $10 from Scared Avocado. Is that scared avocado? How could you be a scared avocado?
I love that. Guys, please, I can't stress it enough. Read Silent Weapons for Silent War. It will tell you what's really happening. Okay.
Well, we'll take a look
I'll check it out.
Let's take a look at it. Scared Avocado also says, for Afinsky, Craig and Fiorella, you guys can't get this out of so many people. Silent Weapons for Silent Ward. Go download the PDF and know the truth. Hey, Scared Avocado, we're going to take a look at it.
We love foreign policy stuff, so.
Frederick Murphy's on there as well. Paul, BSO Gaming, we love you. Kitty Cake 3700, what a great name. CR User, Donnie Newman, ADDNC. A Mars, we already said thank you, and we want to thank you again. I know A Mars, I see him out there. So that's that. And over on the Facebook, Famskis,
On the Facebook.
Jessica McNeil is there. Gabriel
Hey,
Ramirez,
Jessica. Hey,
friend of the fam. Roshan, did you thank Fiorella for the shirt?
He did. He did thank me.
Roshan,
thanks. Wear the shirt.
Mikey, we love you. Matt Iglesias, Andrew Clemo, thank you for hanging on out. Robbie Ree, come on over and join the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate all the words of advice and all the information you give us. Remember, we're a citizen journalist, and we like to include our fellow citizens. So let's talk about Kamala Harris's amazing...
It's
Kamala, her amazing foreign policy knowledge and chops. Take a look at this beautiful answer when it comes to Kashmir.
By the way, she's pulling behind Yang in California. Okay.
By the way, she's...
August 5th, there's been a strong clampdown on the valley with often round-the-clock curfews.
Hold on a second. It's a come.
And as we are all aware, since August 5th, there's been a strong clampdown on the valley with often round-the-clock curfews, thousands of detentions, total blockout on information and communications. I personally and my other Kashmiri friends have not been able to speak with our parents, brothers, sisters, other important family members. For the past 5 weeks now, my question is that in view of the severe human rights abuses, enforced disappearances, violence against women and children, which includes pellet gun injuries and abductions, what kind of message of hope and support would you send to the Kashmiri people? That's one part. And secondly, what kind of role do you see for the United States in addressing this humanitarian crisis? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as to the first piece, it is about reminding people that they are not alone and that we are all watching. Because so often when we see human rights abuses, whether they be in this country or around the world, the abuser will convince those that they abuse that nobody cares and that nobody's watching and that nobody's paying attention, which is a tool of an abuser. And so that is part of what I would say. We are watching. The second piece of it is, there's a lot that needs to happen. First of all, under this administration, they have decimated the State Department. Decimated it. And so, as an example of that point, there is currently no ambassador to Pakistan. And that needs to be addressed. Because if the United States in any meaningful way will have any influence on what is happening in Kashmir, we need to have a representative who can be on the ground, as it relates to the president's responsibility as commander-in-chief. Maybe because most of my career has been spent and focused on keeping people safe, I take that component of the job very seriously. And the commander-in-chief must always have as her highest priority our nation's security and the security of the homeland, but also leading with our values. And part of the values of who we are as a nation is that we speak out about human rights abuses, and where appropriate, we intervene. So that is how I would lead as Commander-in-Chief. With that as a value, that would be an important value with which I would lead, and immediately restock the State Department, understanding that one of the greatest strengths that we have then, and that the Commander-in-Chief has, is the ability to lead with a strong diplomatic corps that can then become involved in a way that allows us to be informed in our engagement. So that's how I would deal with it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
There she goes. Fam, I think that was one of the most lamest answers I've ever heard in my friggin' life. The woman knows nothing about foreign policy. And would you be surprised that she found a way to bring Donald Trump into this?
Oh, yeah, that's her go-to.
I mean, that's all her go. And the fact that she's Indian and she knows nothing about Kashmir, nothing whatsoever. When we asked Tulsi that question, a lot different answer. She said, we got to consider this. She obviously had an idea about what's going on. Kamala Harris is the worst candidate on that stage. I keep saying it. We've done videos on this. She has zero foreign policy chops whatsoever, fam.
And she
lead with our values, fam.
Yeah, she basically took the question and made it into like a domestic abuse situation instead of a geopolitical understanding, that which she should have if she's running for president. I mean, it was a really bad answer, regardless of how I feel about her. I mean, it was just a bad answer. Yeah. And then in addition to that, she used very pro-war words like, we are going to intervene. Again, the United States has to stop being the police of the world. The majority of Americans agree with it. The majority of Americans want us to focus here on our domestic issues, like what Bernie is proposing. Like, people are in the streets. People are having to work 4 jobs to sustain themselves. Why are we going to intervene and tell another country how to run their country and their people if we can't even run our own?
Yeah.
And so to use that sort of pro-neocon, pro-neoliberal military-industrial complex type of language is concerning to me, and I wouldn't want her anywhere near that, because she would probably appoint someone that's very pro-war themselves, and because she doesn't know any better, she would just sit back and not have any control. So obviously I don't think she's a threat, though. Pasta, thankfully, the woman that you want to
talk, I want to talk about because well, it is important, fam. I really don't want to get too deep into this, but I am really one of those people who is really upset at the fact that people just take foreign policy so lightly. Yeah, you might say I take it too seriously. While you guys were looking at this stuff, I was looking into China and what was going on in Saudi Arabia. I am addicted to foreign policy, yes, but I think it's so important. I think it's so tied to our domestic policy, because if we're going to live out this monetary system, we can't have nice things if we're wasting money over here. And the fact that you're saying, like, okay, here's a person that doesn't know what's going on, she's going to throw more money at it and thrust more money at it and listen to the neocons who want to continuously intervene and spend our tax dollars rather than spending on housing, rather than spending on Medicare. And it's so upsetting to certain people that they just don't get it through their head that the most racist thing we can do as a country is continue our imperialistic ways. Especially when it comes to like Venezuela.
Because black and brown people are the ones that pay the price worldwide.
A lot of indigenous people too. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they are people of color, especially when it comes to Venezuela. Okay? And the fact that these candidates don't even understand what a sanction is. Like, I mean, Bernie has an idea about what's going on. Like I said, Bernie's rid of the best. But let's look at somebody who knows the best on foreign policy. And I just want to start off by saying too, fam, because I think this is something new to Johnny. We talked about it, but we experienced this in 2016. The way that progressives had to go on Fox just to get some airtime because MSNBC and CNN wasn't providing it. Take a look at a person who knows about some foreign policy.
Tweet.
All right. He has not responded to your allegations or even tweeted a response. But what you did say is, I've never engaged in hateful rhetoric against you or your family, never will. But you're offering our military assets to the dictator of Saudi Arabia to use as he sees fit is a betrayal of my brother and sisters in uniform who are ready to give our lives for our country, not the Islamist dictator of Saudi Arabia. The question I have for you then, Congresswoman, if you become president of the United States, and Saudi Arabia were attacked like it was here, and apparently by Iran, would you not intervene?
I would do what's in the best interest of our country. And as a soldier, I see these things very clearly, seeing what is our goal, what is our objective. And as it relates to Iran, we have two primary objectives. Number one is to make sure that Iran is no longer moving forward towards increasing and building their nuclear weapons capability, as they currently are since the Iran nuclear deal was torn up. And number two, to prevent this all-out shooting war with Iran that it appears we are headed towards. This is important for two reasons. Number one is obviously we've got to make sure we're keeping the American people safe, keep that at the forefront. And we can accomplish these objectives by understanding and realizing that the current strategy has failed. It's not helping us achieve that objective, and therefore we need to re-enter the Iran nuclear agreement and get rid of these crippling economic sanctions that are continuing to escalate this war against Iran.
Well, Iran has been doing this kind of stuff with or what?
Okay.
Yeah, Donald Trump is saying, he's already saying we're going to sanction Iran.
Yeah.
And sanctions are an act of war.
He did put on new sanctions, too. He put on new sanctions on Venezuela. Mike Gravel said on Jimmy Dore's show, these sanctions, and he stopped Jimmy. And he was like, no, Jimmy, you have to understand this. Sanctions are an act of war. We are seeing all these multiple reports. We did reporting on the show the other day. 40,000 people will die, mainly indigenous children, in Venezuela due to our sanctions. That's sanctions that we are imposing. As we put sanctions on Iran, I understand that you might think that they're our enemy, and we're going to watch a little bit more of this video here as the neocons try to play their way up and just paint Iran as bad no matter what. But these sanctions are going to kill poor people in Iran, and it's not right. So I want to watch Neil Cavuto right here. Do you have anything to say, fam, before we watch this next part?
No, I 100% agree with you.
So check out Neil Cavuto, how he tries to paint this picture, and watch what Tulsi does.
Without sanctions, right? With or without a deal, right? So it doesn't seem to matter the
that's
occasion or the
not
deal,
true.
right? They're provocative behavior and the Strait of Hormuz and elsewhere, right?
While the Iran nuclear deal was in place, Iran was found to be in compliance, both by our own intelligence agencies, the IAEA, other countries' intelligence agencies. They were complying with that deal, and it was making it so that they were not moving forward towards building a nuclear weapon. Now that that deal has been thrown in the trash, Iran is continuing to move forward.
Well, the nuclear deal notwithstanding, they have always been provocative, right? So I guess what I would ask you, would you as president then ignore that provocation, deal or no deal? Would you work on behalf with the Saudis? Do you like the Saudis more or less than Iran? What?
It's not about who you like or who you don't like. It's just about, once again, focusing on our objective of keeping the American people safe. What has just happened and transpired over the last few days here didn't just pop up out of nowhere. So we can't look at this in isolation away from what has been happening over the last several months that really was kicked off by President Trump walking away from and throwing that nuclear deal in the trash, increasing crippling economic sanctions that are really hurting the people of Iran, most of all, designating their military as a terrorist organization, deploying more of our troops to the region. So there's a number of things that have pushed us all, the world, to this point where we are today.
So let me ask you, do you recognize...
I'm sorry, I had the same reaction as her, literally laughed.
You did?
It was the same reaction because it's that's not what it's about here. You can see what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same typical neocon talk, but she knows, she understands this stuff. And I understand that this is the area where she rises above everybody else. But the fact that our other candidates, a lot of them just don't know squat. I mean, Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren are just so blind on this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they would be just an awful choice. You know what I'm saying? Tulsi, talking about sanctions, talking how it hurts the people, how it really, and this is something we have to understand. I think I'm going to make a show just about sanctions again, maybe with some fun music or something, because people really aren't understanding the crippling effect of sanctions, and they hurt the poor and the children. Go ahead.
You could just start by defining it too, because a lot of people might not know.
Can we go one more clip of Tulsi before you get out of here? Okay, let's go. Yes.
Mohammed bin Salman as the leader of Saudi Arabia. Now, I know he was behind a lot of signals point that he was behind the killing of that Washington Post journalist a little over a year ago. But he is still in charge. And others have said you can't pick and choose your leaders of countries you might not like. It is what it is. Would you talk to him? Would you deal with him? Would you, on an attack like this, do something in concert with him?
I think it's important under these and other circumstances to be ready and to have the willingness to talk to leaders of other countries. And yes, I would meet with the leader of Saudi Arabia, as I would meet with the leader of Iran, to de-escalate these tensions. And once again, keeping at the forefront what is in the best interest of the United States and how can we best accomplish that objective, which is keeping the American people safe, doing what's in the best interest of our national security. And by pursuing these diplomatic measures, we have the opportunity to then prevent that worst case scenario, which is an all-out shooting conflict war that would cause a devastating cost to the American people, to our troops, countless lives, trillions more dollars, what to speak of the impact and the devastation that would be caused around the region and the world.
All right, so
fam, she knows. She understands what she probably saw the Millennial Challenge 2002 whatnot. She understands how this will be a crippling war. It would kill so many people, the lives of everybody, and it would be a really hard war to win because of the region and the location of Iran. Not just that I think a lot of soldiers nowadays, of course they're going to defend this country, whatnot, but at some point they're going to say, what the hell are we doing being poor people fighting these rich men's war when these people in Iran, and they'll be labeled terrorists, whatnot, but they're going to fight for their country to the death.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? These people are going to fight to the very end. A war with Iran would be devastating economically, humanitarian-wise. It just would be awful.
Yeah, and she gets it, like you say. And not only that, but it would also probably escalate tensions with Russia. It could probably turn into a World War III.
Yes.
And we're always on that little brink right there. And there was a video I recently saw. I don't know who posted it, but it was like, what would happen if Russia and the United States went to war? And like the consequences, 900 million people would die in a matter of hours because nuclear weapons would be launched, and you wouldn't want to be in Europe or Northern America at that point. And war is a very, very, very dire concern. I think a lot of Americans yet don't understand that, and I think the only way we're going to understand that is when something happens. Again, when 9/11 happened, a lot of people started understanding more of why we went into war and with Iraq, and now it's kind of like it's been so long that I think people are forgetting like the consequences of that war and what it means. Yeah,
it would be. There's a term that Denzel Washington used in the movie it wasn't Hunt for. It was called Crimson Tide, I think, or something. It was about the Alabama. He said, not nuclear war, nuclear holocaust.
Yeah. And
Mike Gravel talked about this alone. You can eliminate all the missiles that are on the surface right now. Just the missiles that are in the submarines between the United States and Russia can blow up the friggin' world like 10 times. I mean, that's the power of the tridents we have underwater. And Mike Unge says, $10, Mikey. We love you,
Thanks,
Mikey.
Mikey.
You, oh, Tulsi, there you go again, making sense.
Right? And just let me point out that if anybody else was a threat, like the way Tulsi is to the military-industrial complex, they would keep them off the debates too. To me, she's the biggest threat to the military-industrial complex. And look at Gravel.
They got him off the stage quickly, Johnny.
Look what they did to him.
Quickly.
And they're the two most anti-war candidates. Now, Bernie is there, and he has a movement. He has more of an upper hand right now. He's running his second time, and also he has been a little less challenging to that narrative, and I get why he's doing it, because look what happens when you even challenge it to this degree. Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to give Bernie a little time before I speak out on that too as well, because I understand that he has this problem where he doesn't want to come off like a socialist, but I don't want him placating to centrists. I'd rather him placate to the children who are going to die from these sanctions. So I hope he does get better on this situation.
He did say he was going to research.
He says he's going to research it, but once again, I would hope that this is something that doesn't need to be researched at this point. But to be fair, Bernie was the original OG. Him on the floor in Congress
80s.
Talking about the way the CIA removed Mossadegh really opened my eyes to a lot of foreign policy.
Yeah.
And he was the number one. Remember when he said, "Who are you worried about? Iraq? Who are you worried about? Panama?" You know what I'm saying? That whole thing, that Matt Orfalia, ORF. You type in Matt Orfalia or Orf Beast Mode, Bernie Sanders. Great video. It shows how he's the original OG. Now, he's been paying a lot of attention to what's going on domestically, and he is the champion when it comes to the domestic policy. So I will give him that, but I would hope he gets pushed a little bit further to Tulsi's side. Like I said, the Matt Duffs, those guys, very bad.
Again, this is why I see that Bernie has things that Tulsi doesn't, and Tulsi has things that Bernie doesn't. And honestly, combined, they would be unstoppable, which is, I feel, why
Yeah.
the establishment is doing everything they can to keep them apart.
Yeah.
So
And the push
anyway.
towards Bernie Warren is really disappointing.
Yeah, no, that's
it's just disappointing.
That's not.
It really is. It should be Bernie and
That's
Tulsi all the way.
not it. People will not buy that. Believe me. Okay, fam.
Donald Smead gave us $2. Chuck,
Thank you, Donald
so much,
Smead.
Donald Smead. Did we miss anybody else on the MCSC network? Rogue Cow is there. Robin Adams.
Hi, Rogue Cow.
Ryan for Prez. Emerald 333331. You sound like Joe Biden over there. Yeah. To Leister. Smart Trump people trolling. He says he's not trolling. Stefan Kozolowinski. I love that beautiful Polish name. Mikey, you who gave us the $10. Thank you again. Amers from the beginning. We love you. Michael Cruz.
Dumb Michael Cruz.
Paul BSO Gaming. We love our fams over there.
Paul.
Allison Irwin on the Facebook.
Hi, Allison on the Facebook.
Thank you so much.
Fam,
And if you
it's
ha-
just Facebook, not the Facebook.
Well, on the YouTubes and the Facebook, in the intranet.
Christ.
That's what we got. Johnny Sue, you got anything to get us out of here before I tell people to go over to the Rockfin? Johnny has no more stuff. Fam's got to get to work. She's got stuff to do. We have a lot of journalism to work on for Pasta Jardula.
And Fiorella.
Johnny Sue on the 1s and 2s.
Combo out.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, our Patreons.
Thank you, guys.